Awesome. Kia ora koutou. Good morning, everybody. My name's Harvey Brooks. I'm the Executive Director of Wellbeing Waikato, and welcome to our Affordable Energy webinar series, or welcome back if you've already been to a few of the presentations over the last month or so. It's great to have you back. Today, we're really thrilled to have Matt Newman from Rewiring Aotearoa joining us, and he's very kindly stepped in at late notice for Mike Casey, who's been called away regarding an important announcement about solar energy, I think, which is a great coincidence to have today. I'll introduce Matt, a little bit more thoroughly in just a second, but I'll just start us with a karakia to get the meeting going. He karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tanga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi yaki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhunga, haumi e hui e tai. Alrighty, thanks again for joining us. Just a few little housekeeping matters before we get going. If you're on the call today, please switch your microphone to mute so that we don't have any background noise. Thanks very much. If you've got questions, comments, thoughts for Matt, please put them in the chat, and Amy from Wellbeing Waikato will monitor those, and then we will present those questions on your behalf to Matt at the end of the conversation. And if there's time available, we can always open up for some live questions as well. This webinar is being recorded, so if you are uncomfortable with your face being in the recording, please just turn your camera off at this point as well. We will put the recording and the full slide deck on our webpage, hopefully by the end of this week or early next week at the very latest. Hopefully that gets us all into the right groove. So just to quickly recap who we are, if this is the first time you've joined our webinar series, Wellbeing Waikato, we're an independent charitable trust. We're really focused on regional intelligence and knowledge about what's most important to households and whānau for their well-being, and we identify the emerging risks early, trying to go upstream and surface the underlying drivers, not just the symptoms. We convene with government, iwi, councils, community organisations and the private sector around decision useful insights, and we share those for free, like we're doing today, with as many people as we can. You can just see there some of the more recent publications that we've worked on, and they cover things like youth, food, housing, well-being in different communities around the region, like the Hauraki area. And every year we produce a State of the Region report, which brings that all together. It's all online at our website. Okay, so why electricity? Well, we're all involved in this system, and it's the most remarkable system in the world, I think, in many ways. It's probably the most complex system in the world, but we live in an electric society. And our electricity system needs to be affordable, reliable and sustainable, which is the energy trilemma, as is often referred to. And today's speaker, I think, will really highlight the significance of getting that trilemma right. There are 4 big questions that we've put to all of our speakers across the webinar series, and each of them will approach those from their own perspectives. And at the end of that, we hope that we'll have a strong stack up of knowledge and insight into each of those. So the first one is, how does the electricity system actually work, and why is it designed that way? The second one, what drives power prices and how could they be made more affordable? Thirdly, how does energy affordability affect household and community well-being? And lastly, what would a better system look like, and how are we going to get there? If you've been part of our series so far, you might recognise this slide from our first speaker, Jeff Bertram, and I think it's a good one just to always come back to in terms of how does the system actually work at the moment, and it's a representation from MBIE, from one of their documents. And I think the point really is here, the system operator is Transpower. You could kind of take that as, where does the decision making lie in the system? And as you can see, it's on the left hand side towards the big big industrial parts of the system, and that's the system that we all have, and we're over here on the left as the little users. Jeff's presentation, and I'm just putting this up there as a representation of what he talked about, is a much more distributed system, and one where whether it's households, businesses or communities on the right have much more agency over how their energy is generated and used through things like solar and battery technology, and the locus of control and power is much more towards the community as opposed towards the big remote part of the system. And Jeff summarized it in this very, very simple diagram, and I put that up there, Matt, as much as anything to say this is kind of like a working idea. It's not exactly new at all, but perhaps what we're talking about today is the transition from the top part of the diagram, where most of our generation and transmission is remote and very little is distributed, to the bottom part of the diagram, where the distributed generation system is as important, if not more, than the top part of the diagram. So let's see. And I think, Matt, you're going to have a great deal to contribute towards that today in terms of your presentation. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to Matt, and I'll just briefly introduce him, and then he can share his slides with us. So Matt Newman is a community organiser, educator and farmer, proudly hailing from the province of Wanganui, but now living in Whangarei. Having spent much of his career living and working in Te Urewera and alongside whānau in many of Aotearoa's most remote communities, he now serves as community activator for Rewiring Aotearoa, supporting communities, marae, and local leaders across the motu to unlock the practical, economic, and resilience benefits of electrification and build a more prosperous future for Aotearoa, which sounds absolutely brilliant. So Matt, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, my friend. I'll hand over to you and let you share the screen, and the floor is yours. Kia ora.
Ka pai, tēnā koe. Harvey, 2 seconds while I just get the screen up. Kai, we should be all good to go. Awesome. Ka pai, well, yeah, o tira tēnā tātou. Waikato tani wharau, i piko e tani whai, piko e tani wha, karanga mai. Muri mai tō tātou. Tini aitua, ki te pai o Matariki, e te wānei, te puta mai o Matariki i tēnei wā. Rātou ki a rātou, tātou ki a tātou, te hunga orea e tau mai nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. It's really great to be here with you this morning. Thanks for your time, and apologies from Mike as well. There's been a pretty exciting announcement from the Labour Party around their energy policy platform, and particularly with solar this morning. So I'd really encourage you to go and have a look at that after this presentation, or during. Maybe that's a sign of how well things are going. I'll leave that up to you. Ka pai. Today I want to talk a little bit about New Zealand-made energy, and that really is the ultimate dream for us as an organisation. From a place called Rewiring Aotearoa, we are a think tank, do tank. I still don't quite know what that means, but what I know is that we're an independent charity, and we are fiercely independent. We are fully philanthropically funded, and we exist to really be the voice of the homes that are the end users of our energy system, and to put the ideas out and to win the argument of, hey, there has to be a better way than what exists at the moment for our households and for our communities all across Aotearoa. We're really independent, and we are hugely evidence-based. So we're split into 3 teams. We've got our data team who create the argument, our policy team who push it out to government to say, hey, this is what it could look like, and then our ecosystem team. And our role is translating all of this data and all of the reports into really tangible sit-down kitchen table conversations, which Harvey and I were talking about earlier this morning. Really exciting for you, however, is that we have had a brand new report come out last Monday called Electric Homes and Vehicles. It's about 134 pages. You're more than welcome to go out and read it, or else I could perhaps summarize it for you in a way easier and quicker fashion, which I'll attempt to do this morning. And it really is that idea of what is the opportunity in front of us for running on New Zealand-made energy. That is our North Star. We know, and we're all experiencing what happens when our wider energy system is reliant reliant on imported fossil fuels. And the argument that we make here at Aotearoa, Rewiring Aotearoa, is that that simply cannot be the future for this country. For stable and for lower bills, for lower emissions for our country, and for greater resilience, we must be running on New Zealand-made energy. And that's what I would like to share with you this morning. So my name is Matt. I grew up in Whanganui and have lived all over the place. Went to university down in Dunedin, spent some time living up in Te Urewera, out on the east coast as well, down in Wellington, and slowly have been making our way up north. And we live on a small sheep and beef farm just out of Whangarei up here, where my partner and her family are from. My background isn't in energy, and it's mainly in social services and in education and teaching as well for a while. But in a sense, like many of us, we grew up in this system where energy was just something that we didn't think about, right? Like my childhood was spent in an absolute plume of two-stroke fumes, as my mum made me mow not just our lawns, but the lawns of all our bloomin' neighbours up and down the road. Every school holidays, we were shipped off to Taranaki to our uncle's farm, and we would have to walk the hills carrying these jerry cans of 91 unleaded so we could power his water pumps for the farm. And then in the uni holidays, I'd go and try to help my dad in his engineering workshop, driving his LPG forklift around and moving barrels of oil. And so if I picture my childhood, I think it does look like this. That slightly bogan Wanganui family who only knows what we know and only does what we do. And yes, there is a Metallica t-shirt that child is wearing, if you hadn't quite noticed. And so it makes complete sense then, right, that my life actually is still mainly powered by fossil fuels. On our little farm up here in Whangarei, we drive a 2015 Toyota Hilux. It's a diesel. Our heating for our home is a wood burner. Obviously not a fossil fuel in itself, but the chainsaw I use and the wood splitter that I use to split that wood is. Our hot water is heated by an LPG gas califont on the side of our house. And my partner drives a 2016, I think it is, Subaru Outback, which at the peak of the fuel crisis cost us a grand total of $230 to fill up the tank every single week. And we wondered in January, where the hell is all of our money going? We spent $1,500 alone on our quad bike and on our two vehicles, just in fuel, just in diesel and in 91 unleaded. And we kind of thought, man, there must be a better way than what we're doing right now, because this doesn't make a lot of sense. Something happened in the Strait of Hormuz and everything else. And before we knew it, we were paying close to $3,000 every month just to keep our vehicles going on our farm and just to get us around to live the lives that we live as well. All of us here in Aotearoa over the last few months have spent a collective $2 billion extra on fossil fuels because of the overseas war that has been happening. And so I know for a fact that I am not the only person who is starting to feel this energy squeeze. And that this is starting to become something that we're talking about more. You only need to look at RNZ or the papers to see how much energy is now mentioned over and over again as a significant topic. It's something that it's not quite sexy yet. I think it's still quite a very boring, dull topic. And so I'm really trying to make this not so dull and boring this morning. But it is something that we're starting to give a lot of thought to, mainly because of the cost for all of us. The energy squeeze, though, and the thing that I'm really worried about this is how our transition period here is going to affect really vulnerable communities across Aotearoa, really isolated communities, but also is going to affect us all as well. If we look here, the average home in Aotearoa spends about 10% of their income on energy. Yeah, that's their household energy and their transport energy as well. The really shocking thing for me, though, is actually if we move down to those lower income homes who are spending close to 30% of their disposable income on their energy. Yeah, that's over 3 times difference between the lowest income homes and the highest income homes here in Aotearoa. And it got so bad, and this was the convincing statistic for me to work alongside Rewiring Aotearoa, that last year 1 in 10 New Zealand households borrowed money from family and friends to pay their energy bills. I firmly believe that this is simply not good enough for us as a country that can make a heck of a lot of energy, that can be really prosperous in it. I really don't think that it's good enough that 10% of our homes throughout this country are having to ask for support in paying these bills. And it comes at a time when we're starting to talk about electrification, and we know that electrification actually is a real win-win. You know, whether you are interested in this because you care about the savings for your pocket, or whether you're interested in this because you know that it will reduce your emissions, or actually, like most New Zealanders, you're here for both. Electrification is something that we can now agree on, and we know that it is a win-win. It is a win-win for the bill savings, and it is a win-win for the emission savings as well. So I guess we come to the big question, right? Which is, how do we electrify all of New Zealand? Um, I have a quick look at our energy system at the moment. So New Zealand, we pat ourselves on the back for having a really renewable grid, and we do. I think yesterday our grid was running at like 93% renewable because of all the rain that was going down south, and that is absolutely fantastic. But our energy system is actually still mostly fossil fuel based, about 65, 66% of it, and at least 50% of our energy system relies on fossil fuels that are imported. Why is that a problem? I think we can just look at the petrol price to understand why that is a problem. And I'm conscious that an announcement was made about 45 minutes ago in Iran, which means that our oil prices are now soaring again. So here at Rewiring Aotearoa, we decided, okay, let's make the argument for the electrification of our energy system, that we're running on New Zealand-made energy is key. To do that, we had to go out and we had to count all of the machines here in New Zealand. So there are about 10 million. Oh, I can't quite get my slide to change. There we go. There's about 10 million fossil fuel machines that power our lives at the moment. Yeah. We know this because we went out and counted them all. About 700,000 of those 10 million machines are just simply not ready to electrify. The technology doesn't exist. Like an electric combine harvester doesn't exist. An electric 737 going from Auckland to Wellington doesn't exist. An electric hot air balloon, we've got about 67 of them, but I don't know if you know this, you can't electrify them yet. So, the reality is we find that these bigger, more industry-focused machines, they're not able to be electrified yet. The interesting thing, though, is that of those 10 million machines, there's about 1 million of them that are almost ready. Now, when I say almost ready, what I mean here is that you can't just go and buy them off the shelf really easily down in your local store, right? Like the frost fan here in the picture, Mike on his orchard down in Cromwell, our CEO, had to import it from South Africa. Or the rubbish truck, we know that Waste Management down in Wellington had to retrospectively look at their fleet and decide, how are we going to build this to be electric? The same with Auckland. These were like big decisions that had to be made. But the interesting thing here, though, and the one in the middle, the Ute, is that this could now move into the category of ready to electrify. So of those 10 million fossil fuel machines that power our world here in Aotearoa, 8.5 million of them are actually ready to electrify. Not only are they ready to electrify, you will save over the long-term life of these machines more money by having the electric version rather than its fossil fuel counterpart, and you will save emissions as well. In some cases, these machines will be more expensive. There is a greater upfront cost. However, the running costs of those machines over their lifespan are so much less than their fossil fuel counterparts. And this is what we call the electrification tipping point. It's quite an exciting time to be here in New Zealand at the moment. We've reached it a couple of years ago. And basically what it means is this: you are almost never better off buying a fossil fuel machine again. Why does that work here in New Zealand? It is because we are so bloody isolated. Yeah, at the moment, our energy system that relies on these imported fossil fuels looks like this. And it's 3.1 million tons of fuel that comes from Saudi Arabia to go and get refined in places like South Korea. And it's chucked on about 70 ships that come from those refineries here to New Zealand. And then we chuck them on about 300,000 trucks that roll around our country to power our 5 million vehicles. Now, again, I don't work in supply chain logistics, but even I know that that is not a very efficient system. It's incredibly fragile, yeah, with overseas conflicts like Iran at the moment, like Ukraine, as we saw a couple of years ago, affecting our domestic supply and ultimately our domestic prices as well. So badly to the point that we literally have the government hoping that ships will arrive here. Like that's our policy platform. We're crossing our fingers and really hoping that these ships will arrive to keep our country going. Not only is it bloody fragile, it is also so expensive. And so when we think about this idea of New Zealand made energy, realistically, what we're asking people to do in their homes is to make 6 really good decisions over the next 10 years. What do I mean by that? It's the machines that power our home, the machines that we often don't think about, the way we heat our home, the way we heat our water, the way we cook our kai, and then a few other machines like how we get around and how we create the energy. These are the good decisions that we need to make in order to make sure that our homes are saving on their energy bills, but they're also saving on their emissions as well. This is the win-win of electrification. If we were to do that, that is $95 billion in savings by 2040 for Aotearoa. This is in our homes. This is money that stays here in our communities. Because at the moment, when I go down to BP to fill up my ute, I literally should be going down to Marsden Point and just throwing a couple of $50 notes in the ocean and hoping that they will drift over to Saudi Arabia sometime. Because that is exactly what we're doing. Yeah, whereas with this idea of New Zealand made energy, creating the energy in our homes, it stays here in our communities, in our local economies. $95 billion is such a big number of that I don't really understand it. So we've tried to help you to understand how much that is. Yeah, it's 30 new Dunedin hospitals. It's 16 city rail links. It's 31 LNG terminals that have been proposed for Taranaki at the moment. It's 139 Christchurch stadiums. It's 380 Queenstown roundabouts, which tells you how ridiculously expensive it is to build a roundabout in Queenstown. Or it's 5 second Auckland Harbour bridge crossings. This is just such a huge amount of money that could stay here and ultimately exist in our communities, stimulate our economies, and create a New Zealand that is more prosperous for all of us. So how do we take advantage of that? I've talked about this idea of these 6 good decisions over the next 10 years. And these are good decisions because what they do is they help you to regain control over New Zealand made energy, help you to regain control over your own energy bills. The really exciting thing about it is that these 6 decisions exist in your home. They are active decisions that we can make. And I want to take you through some of these machines in your homes. At the moment, for me, our hot water is heated by a gas calophon, right? Every 3 months, I get to experience the joy that is the cold shower because I've forgotten to order a new LPG bottle again. And some guy called Bruce tries to come up our terrible driveway in the middle of nowhere with these massive trucks full of these gas bottles. He struggles to get them off the back. He comes around the side of the house, straps them on, and we repeat the cycle over and over and over again. I spend about $1,000 at the moment on our LPG bills for our home. The team model for me, if that was electric, that would only be about $200, a massive difference. But I'm also a bit of a gorse pockets. And so when I think about the machine that we installed on the side of our house, our LPG hot water calophon, it's because when I went to Bunnings, the prices looked like this. Yeah, about $4,000 to buy a calophon that sits on the side in comparison to the hot water heat pump that's, about seven and a half at the moment. What these labels are missing, though, is they're missing what is the overall lifetime running cost of these machines. Now, if I walked into Bunnings and if I saw the label that said this, what decision would I make? Yeah, relying on the fossil fuel machine, sure, it's cheaper at the beginning, but over its entire lifespan, the 15 years that it'll last, I am spending at least 50% more than I would if I was to go with the electric alternative, the hot water heat pump. We can see that it just completely doesn't make sense to do here. But what we're seeing more and more is that people will replace like for like, or people will just go with what they know. This is the exciting part of electrification. The technology exists. the knowledge doesn't. And so how do we empower our communities to understand that you are never better off going with a fossil fuel machine ever again? The same with the heating, right? Yep. To replace my LPG or my natural gas reticulated heater, it actually costs a little bit more than a heat pump now. But most people, if your gas heater breaks, you're just going to swap it as a like for like. If you were to do that, again, the running costs of these machines over their lifespan just completely dwarf each other, the electric in comparison to the fossil fuel. The interesting machine in our homes where you're not going to save a huge amount of money is where it comes to cooking. Cooking, particularly with gas, the way that you would save a significant money here is if you have a gas connection and this is one of the last machines connected to that gas. I think the average gas connection fee for a home here in Aotearoa is about $780. That is just your connection fee. And we see lots of homes who are still connected to gas, particularly for their cooking. They're only paying $3 or $4 for the actual gas that they use, but they're paying 60, 70, $80 a month to be connected to that network. A study from ECA, though, gave us the most interesting insight to this, that actually having gas cooktops in our homes leads to over 200 premature deaths every year and over 3,000 cases of childhood asthma. That's from these noxious gases that just linger in your home. There is no way to get them out. That as a country, as ECO obviously would do, contextualize that as a country, is about $3.3 billion in lost productivity and in healthcare costs. And I always say to people, if that doesn't convince you alone to get rid of your gas stovetop, perhaps the fact that they really suck to clean does. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever tried to clean a gas stovetop in comparison to the electric one. It is just completely night and day. I want to have a little look as well around our vehicles. At the moment, I know prices have come down, and these are the numbers from the peak of our fuel crisis about 7 weeks ago. I think we would be kidding ourselves to think that this will not be a situation that happens again. It happened in Ukraine, it's happened with Iran, and we will see this spike of imported fossil fuels, the spike in price happening over and over and over, particularly with significant geopolitical tensions. Yeah, if we were to put up what is the cost of running your vehicle with electricity and EV in comparison to the cost of fossil fuels, it completely dwarfs it. Yeah. And so when I look for me, we've decided we can't sustain having our Hilux anymore because this is the average costs of running that machine in comparison to the electric version. Obviously, I'm beating around the bush a little bit here about the upfront cost. Of course, there is a significant upfront cost with some of these electric machines, particularly in the EV space. More and more, we are seeing price parity, though. However, for new technologies like the electric utes, that's something that the market will see a shift in the market within the next few years on that. So this is the reason for our existence at Rewiring Aotearoa, to electrify everything. And you can imagine that particularly for people like my family, the Wanganui Bogans, there's a lot of pushback to that idea, such as my cousins who would often say, well, it's all very well and good, but where are we going to get this electricity? And that's a really fair question. Yeah. In order to electrify our nation, we need to double our energy generation to electrify everything. Of course, we're going to need more big stuff, but we have a saying at Rewiring that a lot of a little is a lot. A lot of a little is a lot. And so actually what we need is more small stuff as well. If 80% of homes here in Aotearoa were to go out and put a 9 kilowatt solar system, which is actually like on the small to medium range now, that is 40% more electricity generation. And I know lots of people think 80%, that's a big number. Yeah, it is a big number, but we're seeing some states in Australia with over 50% solar saturation now, and that's starting to increase. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, but this is something that will happen here in Aotearoa. So if 80% of our homes put that in, we'd see 40% more electricity generation. If 50,000 farms put in a mid-sized solar system, which is less than a hectare, and it's like what Mike has done on his farm down in Cromwell, we would see 60% more electricity generation. As somebody who was slave labor on farms throughout my childhood, I know that there is a lot of these farms, a hectare of very rough or very unused land that actually could be used for a purpose like this. We would see 60% more electricity generation, 40 plus 60. I think we're looking at around doubling our electricity, our capacity and generation here in the country. We know, though, that grid electricity is just increasing alongside petrol and alongside gas. We are really big backers of the need for people to stay on the grid. The grid in New Zealand really is a feat of engineering, and it does a good job. And the reason that we back people to stay on the grid is that we don't think the economics stacks up for people going off grid at all. But also, when you think about the way that your solar is used, and we'll get into that in a little bit, there's a really important need for us to be able to share that energy around. This is fascinating, though. If we look at the rate in comparison to inflation, while all of these other energy forms have increased in price, the cost of battery cells and the cost of solar modules have only gotten lower. Therefore, it would make sense to us that this is something we look to start relying more and more on. Really good graph at the beginning there, because the energy system is blooming complex. I think if I could look at it like this, it's probably quite an easy way for us to understand it. So you've got your generation, and they charge about 19 cents a kilowatt hour. You've got your transmission, who put their bid on as well. Then you've got your distribution, who put their bid on, and your retail as well. And so we're kind of getting at the household level delivered to our homes, electricity at about 40 cents a kilowatt hour. Yeah. The modeling that our team has done is that a rooftop solar setup on your home, even financed at 5.5%, the going mortgage rate, would deliver to your home energy at 11 cents a kilowatt hour. Perhaps a better framing of that argument is this: if aliens came to New Zealand and gave us a source of free electricity generation, it would still cost you more to get it to your home because of all of those delivery costs than it does for your energy to come off your roof, for you to create it off solar panels. That is staggering to me. One of the other questions we get, yep, that's all very well and good, moron, but our grid isn't going to be able to handle it. And, this person is right. Our grid wouldn't handle it if we all went out, got EVs, got solar panels and batteries, and we installed them by the end of next week. Of course, that's not going to happen, but of course, that is not a possible reality here either. This is something we have to build towards, and something that we need to have an agreed strategy on. One of the things that we're pushing for at the moment is this idea of let's have a bipartisan energy strategy for our country. There is no reason that we cannot do this if we have the best intentions for the household consumer at the heart of it, which we must. Then we can design an energy system that works for all of us. Back to the idea, sorry, another tangent, that our grid can't handle it. Our grid's actually only at an average load of about 40%. This slide is from my colleague. He drew it himself. And because I want you to think of your own energy profile, right? Our usage kind of looks like this. It goes up in the mornings when we're putting the Mike Hosking breakfast on, and we're eating our porridge, and we've just had a shower, and you're rushing to put something in the dryer before work. But then the majority of us go to work, and then our energy usage is low, and then it peaks again in the evening when we come home to cook our food, to watch Seven Sharp, all of those other things before we go to bed. And so how do we smooth that out so that our grid actually can handle it when we are building more and more and more and demanding more and more of it? Because we want it to look like this, right? Again, the technology exists for us to do this, and it's a simple household battery. One of the things that is important to understand is this is not new technology. There are people that are already doing this and experiencing the benefits of it. If you have a battery at your home, it actually removes that household from that peak load, yeah? And we're seeing that over 50% of new solar installs are coming with batteries as well. And so by removing those homes from the peaks, those two peaks that I showed you on that beautiful graph before, it means that the load on our network is reduced. say like what Mike has done in Cromwell with his farm, with a solar installation, that removes 25 homes. So more and more, we can see that actually there are smart ways to manage the load on our network here. Yeah, this is another one that we get a lot of. Hey, electrifying just means that we're going to burn more coal and we're going to have to import it from Indonesia as well. I like to look at this idea of a single solar panel that only weighs 22 kilos, generating over its lifetime the same energy as 10 tons of coal, close to 4 tons of gas, and over 4 tons of diesel as well. The possibility for this is remarkable. New Zealand made energy off the rooftops of our homes that we use in our homes and off our farms that is distributed for all of us. I'm just going to skip over this bit here. The last thing that I want to say is that there are decisions that need to be made by our local leaders and by our national leaders as well. We're working really hard to make this election an electric one. We want this to be the energy election because it is the thing that is crippling our homes and crippling our economy at the moment. There's a range of policies that we need. This would be some of my thoughts on what some of those are. The first thing that we need is we need to recognize that the biggest barrier to electrification isn't the technology, isn't the willingness to do it, but it's actually having the upfront capital. Remember, I spoke right at the beginning of this that while these machines will save you money over their lifetime, sometimes we see with some of them that their upfront costs are higher. We're working really hard at the moment to push the government and to push political parties with this idea of energy impact loans. 2 weeks ago, the National Party decided to make this their policy platform. The Labour Party have just announced that this is their policy platform today. So we literally have bipartisan support for this. What we're asking now, though, is let's not make this an election issue. Let's make this something that we implement now before the election, so households can start to feel these savings. This policy is called the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme. And basically what it is it's a long-term, low-interest, flexible loan that is tied to any rateable property. So any rateable property would be able to access the upfront capital for these machines. The term of the loan is tied to the machine. So 30 years for solar, 15 years for hot water heat pumps and the like. And what it means is because that upfront cost is spread out over the long term, there are always net savings. You never go into negative cash flow with this. And so this is something that really could change and would really address the issue of the upfront cost for electrification throughout our community. The second thing that we're asking for is we need policies that work for Hapuri Māori, and we need them for other community situations as well. We're looking at a lot around these ideas of multiple trading relationships here. How is it that a marae can generate the electricity but then send it out to its people? How is it that a farm over here could generate that electricity and then send it to the school down the road? All of those things, because our electricity system in particular at the moment is not designed for the way that this will be operating more and more. It's designed for purely transmission straight out to houses. It's not designed for the house to then put back into the grid to then cycle that around more and more. So there is work that is needed for this as well. The other thing is what do we do for people that don't own their homes, for renters? I've been a renter, and I know that the bottom line for a lot of landlords purely is cost. How do we make it that renters are able to not only enjoy the benefits of this, but access some of the savings for it as well? One of the things we think is that warmer Kiwi homes should be expanded to electric Kiwi homes. Yeah, extend who is eligible. All households should be eligible to some level of support, whether that's subsidies, whether that is things like the RAS, all of those different things. We're working at the moment as well on a solar for renters kaupapa that is about trying to find the balance. How is it that we activate landlords to put solar on their roof and so that tenants can experience the benefits, the literal cost-saving benefits of that too? The last one that I want to talk about, and it's pretty topical for me as we try to get rid of our Hilux, is electrifying our fleet. Yeah, our fleet is really, really old in New Zealand. About 15 years is the average age of our cars. And currently, EVs only make up 2% of that. Every day, we are spending between 40 to 65 million at the pump, and that is rising for petrol and for diesel. We know that there are a lot of new cars that come into New Zealand, some of them for private, and some of them for business, half are new and half are used. And we think that there should be some work put in place here as well, so that the decision to bring cars into New Zealand means that we end up ultimately with a more electrified fleet, because we know that there are massive, massive savings there. In summary, I would say that our dream for the energy system here in Aotearoa is that we electrify everything. And then by electrifying everything, we electrify everyone. We're conscious of our energy. We understand how it works. We get a fair deal, and we're not in a place where people are now having to think about, do I buy kai? Do I turn the heater on? Or be part of the 2% of households in New Zealand that were disconnected for not paying their bills last year, which is rapidly rising as well. Ultimately, by doing that, electrifying everything, electrifying everyone, we end up with a very electric Aotearoa, purely relying on New Zealand-made energy. That's the dream and the hope. And I appreciate your time listening to me rambling on about it this morning. Kia ora tātou.
Oh, kia ora e hoa. Matt, my friend, I'm so inspired. Thank you so much. There are some concepts there which I've heard described in other ways, which I barely managed to understand, and you've just covered it all in such an easily accessible form. I loved your honesty, how relatable, how determined, how optimistic you and your organisation are about this, and I think you're really on the money. So thank you so much. Folks, if you do have questions, please put them in the chat. And Matt, if you don't mind, I've got a few questions to ask as well, just to start it off. I really, really liked what you said about the regressive nature of energy costs in terms of how they fall hardest on the people who are least able to pay. And when you were talking about that, and then talking about the whole of life versus the upfront cost and benefits of some of the new electric appliances, I was thinking about that a lot. And you answered, the question I might have had in terms of impact loans and that kind of thing. But I was thinking, when you look at some of the previous examples of government subsidy programs, whether it's the subsidy for electric vehicles versus utes, or first or last year free university programs, often what tends to happen is the people who capture them are the people who least need those benefits, because they are the most probably competent, capable people at filling in forms and all that kind of thing. I don't need to be patronizing. Any thoughts about how can we actually really work hard to make sure that the people who will benefit the most from these schemes are the ones who have the best shot at them?
Yeah, and probably just to preempt this, like a lot of this is my own view now, more so than Rewiring's. I think we can do things, and we should be looking at things like, how do we make sure that all social housing built in Aotearoa has electrification as a part of it, that solar panels, that batteries become a part of that. I think that there's a really good argument to be made into how that stacks up. I think that the impact loans, what we're talking about here, the ratepayers assistance scheme, needs to be a really easy and accessible pathway for people. And there's a lot of work, I think, to do in building trust with that as well. When I was living in Te Uruwera, one of my favourite things that I remember from there is there's an old Klau, and he always used to say to me, we've got a lot of unlearning to do before we relearn. And I think that's a really nice framing. We have to unlearn before we relearn. And I think we are, particularly in the energy system, where we've just done things the same way over and over again because it's worked. Yeah, petrol wasn't that expensive. It was just something we absorbed, all of those different things. And I think there's a real education piece for us on actually how do we give people the information so that they can make these informed decisions as well. And that for me is what is missing there too. Your point around the subsidies, yeah, I mean, we saw a huge uptake with the clean car discount here in New Zealand, and we are seeing almost on par at the moment that same uptake again of EVs because of the fuel crisis. Again, if you've got the capital to do it, you're able to go out and purchase one. You're able to experience those savings. I don't think there's a really easy fix when it comes to this. I think that, yep, subsidies might be a part of it, but the key part there is the removal of the significant upfront capital barrier for electrification.
Kia ora, thank you. Amy, I think we've got a question or a comment from Gareth, is that right?
Yes, we do. So from Gareth Cartwright. So awesome presentation, Matt, and typically sharp level of research. Rewiring are doing a great job. A heads up to this group that warmer Kiwi homes, even in its current form, is not funded beyond June 2027, and that needs to be an election issue. Keen to hear your thoughts about the education platform required so that everyone, including those doing it tough, make the best impact decisions when RAS is available.
Yeah, great heads up, particularly around the warmer Kiwi homes. And you're right, it does need to be an election issue. First of all, I think for the RAS is that we need every council on board. So let me just talk about a little bit about how it will work at the moment. Basically, the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme is through a funding agency of Local Government New Zealand. So Local Government New Zealand would look after the delivery of it all. It would you'd be able to log on, see the property, and then you would be able to click that, and you'd be able to see all of the upgrades that would be available for your property through authorised and suppliers that have been signed on through LGNZ, and map the whole process through that. Choose what ones you want, understand what the repayments would be, and then those repayments would just come in the form like another rates bill, basically. Again, I think the ability to have time to research, to do all of these things is a real luxury and something that not many communities in New Zealand tangibly have, right? If you're already struggling, you're already finding things difficult at the moment financially, the last thing that I would be doing is sitting down to figure out, cool, all right, what's my battery capacity and how much is that going to cost me? And let me spend, then half a day trying to get 3 quotes from this person and that person and that person. So yeah, you're right. Education platform hugely required. All councils need to be on board with it. It needs to be something that is led locally. We know this when it comes to policy, that it's all very well and good to have the answers at a national level, but unless there is tangible activation of local communities and local communities are equipped with people to go out, to educate, to inform, that it will fall over or just won't be taken up in a way that it needs to be taken up for these long-term savings for households.
Awesome. Kia ora, Matt. Just while we're waiting for any other questions, I was just curious to talk to you about LNG. It's kind of it's a bit of a lightning rod issue, eh? And there's been various sort of conversations and discussions about this source of energy versus that, and LNG certainly falls into your expensive, risky, overseas sourced energy source point. Of course, what's interesting is Rewiring Aotearoa have done a report which has actually suggested diesel instead of LNG, which on the face of it sort of seems slightly paradoxical. But I was just wondering what your views on that were. And I guess, just sort of preface my own views a bit. I think sometimes there's a confusion and sort of sometimes comparing apples and oranges where people say, oh, don't have LNG, have solar. But as I understand it, LNG or diesel are being proposed in terms of a firming energy source for low flow risks, and so it's taking the risk out of the system to ensure reliability. So I'm not sure that comparing solar and LNG is exactly a fair comparison. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. There's probably 2 ways that I would come at it. The first is that LNG, so LNG, the argument for LNG is to solve the dry year problem. Yeah, when we don't get a lot of rain, when our hydro dams are low, how is it that we then find the energy, or generate the electricity that New Zealand sucks out at that time? The first thing I think is with a long-term look to the implementation of solar on farms, on our households, we know that LNG will not be something that we would need in the long term. It very much is framed as a short-term decision. Therefore, if it's a short-term decision, why would we look to expand our fossil fuel subscriptions as a nation when the option that we proposed really is that, okay, well, why don't we look at diesel, which we already have a subscription to, and we know that there is a way that we can convert the peakers to then be able to burn through diesel, so we can just rely on that. It very much does come down to the idea, I think, of your energy subscriptions. And if I put it in the home context, for me in my home, our energy subscriptions are electricity, LPG, petrol, and diesel as well. The way that I save money as a household is by consolidating that. I can get rid of the LPG because I'm just can use electricity for my hot water. Eventually, I'll be able to get rid of the petrol, or be able to get rid of the diesel as well. And if we put that in the context of the nation, what we would be doing by importing LNG, by spending the billions of dollars to create an LNG terminal, is locking ourselves into yet another fossil fuel subscription for our country that would then require 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of relying on that fuel as well. I think it was a pretty pragmatic approach from Rewiring, and saying the reality is that we are already powered by more than 50% fossil fuels for our energy system as a country. Why would we not rely on the fossil fuels that we already import to help us solve this problem of the low flow?
Great. That's an excellent answer. Thank you. That's really, really helpful. It doesn't look like we've got any further questions. So, Matt, look, I'll just indulge and ask you one or two more while we've got time, if that's okay. Just a question. The 11 cents a kilowatt hour for solar that you mentioned, that's just for the panels. That's not including battery, I assume?
Great question. I think I would have to actually look at what slide it is. But yes, I think you're right. That is for panels financed at 5.5%.
Yeah. So, I mean, a solar kit, probably just the panels, is probably roughly 10, 12. So roughly speaking, you might double that for a battery. So you'd be still about 20 cents a kilowatt hour, even if you had a battery, which I think your point would still stand. All right, we've got a question, I think, from Blair. Is it Amy? Can you read that out for us?
Yeah, I'll actually just go back to a follow-up from Gareth. So agree with the need for the local activation, Matt. This might be a bit contentious. What should the role of each local lines owner be in this activation? Currently, we're probably seeing slow or low support, or actively seeking to keep a lid on this type of local energy system.
Thanks, Gareth. Good question. I think something I find interesting here is that we actually don't know until the point of connection how many solar installations are happening, right? So I feel for the lines company, because from a lines perspective, all of a sudden you have a request for connection, meaning, oh, these people have got panels. And so it's a very reactive situation in which they then have to go out to design their energy system and the way that their network best utilizes both its original purpose, and now B, this new input from residential homes as well. I think that, they will have to get on board eventually, because we know that the saturation of rooftop solar in New Zealand is happening at a crazy pace and will only continue to do so. I think we'll see probably a bit of can kicking down the road, but it really does require them to have some significant big picture thinking of what does and it is now a new energy system in a sense, but as we spoke about at the beginning, it was never designed for the consumer to be putting back into our local energy system, and now that is the reality. So I do feel for lines companies within this, but I think that the answer is you're either on board or things are falling over is what I would say. I don't think there's any stopping people getting solar now.
Awesome. Shall we go to Blair's question, and then Martin, you've got your hand up. We'll come to you after we've discussed Blair's question. Do you want to just read that one out, Amy?
Sure. So, awed by the RA research, your message is focused on transition. Do you have any thoughts about new energy-dense industries such as data centres or e-fuels for hard to abate sectors?
Yeah, I probably can't speak a huge amount. My thoughts would be that regardless of data centers, we will see an increase in the cost of electricity as a country because of the fact that these centers will be in, and they will be, as you say, really dense users of, particularly of electricity. I think the only way that we can build out against that is to build more generation. What do I think that generation is going to be? I think rooftop solar. We can build that at speed, we can build it at scale, but we also will be needing other bigger projects as well to keep up with the demand. So I think that's really true. We've been talking about this idea of connections of national significance as well. You know, what are some of these really energy heavy using places that use gas at the moment, and they rely on it for their industry? What does it look like for us to say, yep, cool, the technology exists at the moment as a gas connection, you use it, but we know that gas is only going to get more expensive and we can't find any more of it here in New Zealand. So what do these long-term plans for the future look like? Not an energy expert in that sense, but I think we can take a pragmatic approach here, but we need the overall strategy for the country, would be my thinking. Thanks, Blair.
Fantastic, and thanks very much for your question, Blair. Okay, Martin, I think you've got a question. If you unmute your microphone, go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name's Martin. I'm a district councillor, one of a somewhat endangered species at the moment, and our council probably won't exist in the next couple of years. But yeah, I just really wanted to make a bit of a comment about the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme. So I'm a little bit cynical that because LG&Z has been promoting and advocating for this for quite some time, and all we were waiting for the government was to say, yes, you can use it to access local government funding agencies' money. And yeah, we've been asking them for a number of years, and they're just doing it a few months out from an election. So make of that what you will. But yeah, I really think that the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme will be a tremendous boom to increase energy efficiency, and there's also another couple of aspects they want to do it about development contributions, and also about deferring rates for people that are struggling to pay rates. But at the moment it's just the energy efficiency, but we're really looking forward to getting some applications in for that. So that's really just a comment. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I think, Martin, you're right. We've seen these councils who've jumped on board pretty early with it and have just been waiting. So I'm glad that the groundswell's finally happened to make central government actually take note of it. And I should have mentioned this. My final thing that I'd love to mention as well is, so from this brand new report, modelling of households, vehicles and homes across the country, the arguments, the savings, the emission savings, all of those things. We've also at the moment putting out regional reports. So actually for your region specifically, for Waikato, for Hamilton East, for whatever, what are the numbers for you? What does it look like to have an electric home? What are the emissions that could be saved? What are the savings that could be made? All of those things, and that should be released hopefully within a few weeks. So I'd love to get a copy out to all of you, and through Wellbeing Waikato as well, particularly making the argument really strongly for your region that yep, we are past the electrification tipping point. It makes sense. Here's the numbers for us. Let's get on with it.
Kia ora, Matt. And hey, Martin, thank you so much. It's great to have an elected representative on the kōrero today, and some great thoughts there. Thank you. Hey, look, we're just about out of time, and so we'll probably start to wrap up now. Just before we do, your point about hapori Māori, Matt, I think was very, very well made. We've got Manu Barrett, who's on the call today. He's going to be presenting in a couple of months' time, I think it is, to this webinar series about some of the work that he's done around technology to do exactly what you were just saying. And Gareth has been an active participant in our webinar series, and he's presenting as well, coming up, as is the Infrastructure Commission, and we've got Pippa on the line today as well. So it's great to have this community forming. Kia ora, Pippa. Today, I think what you've done, Matt, is absolutely smashed it out of the park. Thank you so much. To be able to get on this call with less than an hour's notice and present to that level of quality speaks a huge amount about you and your passion and your knowledge, but I think it says a huge amount about the depth and capacity and capability and the leadership of Rewiring Aotearoa as well, that you are leading this conversation. And that is really something quite remarkable. I'm absolutely convinced, as you said too, that this is one of the election issues, both in terms of just the importance of it for everybody in New Zealand. You can't really not be an electricity consumer these days. But I think also it's just captured the zeitgeist about the transition and the fact that it is happening. And that it's real, and that it is a little bit sticky and a little bit lumpy as we go through, to put it somewhat kindly, but it is real, and you know, beyond this lies the great verdant meadows of prosperity and abundance, I think, in terms of what could be achieved, and you've described that beautifully. So thank you so much for your generosity today. I've hugely appreciated it. I've enjoyed it immensely. Every speaker we have just absolutely confirms for me that this is so much better than just writing a report, that actually hearing people like you speaking is so inspiring and so informing. So thank you on our behalf to you and Mike and all the whānau at Rewiring Aotearoa. So with that, everybody, thank you so much for coming along. I'm just going to end us with a karakia and then let you get on to your busy day. Just before I do that, though, I should just quickly go back to my presentation and confirm what's coming up next for us here at the Affordable Energy Seminar Series. So as I just said, Pippa's on the line today, and Pippa and Graham Campbell are speaking to us next week, 15th of July, same bat time, same bat channel, 11 a.m. at this same link, where you can hear about the work that the Infrastructure Commission have been doing on electricity as well. It's a great report, and it'll be really, really good to hear them talk us through that. And if you haven't already caught up with it, there is an amazing lineup of speakers still to come right through to early November, which you can see there. Many of the speakers are online today. It's great to have Blair on board. He is going to be our last speaker talking about the Regional Council's energy strategy, and I think that'll be a great bookend for our series as well. So please get on board, put it in your diary, tell all your mates and your mum to come along as well, because I think this is really, really something. You can catch up with all of those. Just go to our website, and the whole series will be there. We're putting the recordings and all the slides up, so you can go back and have another look, or just take a look at the slides as well. So thank you very, very much for joining us today. I'm just going to end us with a karakia and send you on your way. Karakia. Kia tātou katoa te atawhai o te tātou iriki o ihu karaiti, me te araha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga, ki te wairua tāpū, ake ake, āmene. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you very much for